The blast was so sudden it felt like the world split in half. Windows rattled, alarms screamed, and within seconds, the entire street was alive with chaos. People ran outside in their pajamas, shouting and pointing at the smoke pouring from Karen Whitmore's perfect white chimney. She stood in her driveway, face streaked with soot, her hair half-burnt, yelling about faulty firewood. But I didn't need to guess what happened. Because that faulty firewood? It came from my backyard. If you rewind a few months, Maple Ridge Estates looked like the kind of place you'd see in a brochure. Every house painted beige or gray, fences trimmed to regulation height, lawns mowed like they were competing for a trophy. On paper, it was peaceful. But if you've ever lived under an HOA, you know peace and control don't mix well. When I moved here 8 years ago, I just wanted quiet. My wife had passed away, and I figured a neighborhood full of rules would keep life simple. The kind of place where people said good morning and minded their own business. At first, it was exactly that. The Millers next door would bring me pumpkin pie every Thanksgiving. Old Mr. Jenkins waved from his porch every morning. I worked from home as a freelance mechanical engineer, so my days were filled with blueprints and coffee. My backyard was my sanctuary, tool shed, workbench, a small smoker, and a neatly stacked woodpile I split every fall. Cutting wood always gave me peace. There's something honest about it. A log doesn't argue. It doesn't write citations. You just split it, stack it, and it's done. I wish I could say the same about Karen Whitmore. She moved in about a year after I did. Mid-50s, blonde, always dressed like she had a court date, even when she was just walking her dog. Within weeks, she somehow became the HOA president. Nobody remembered voting for her, but there she was, clipboard in hand, bossing everyone around like she was elected mayor of suburbia. Karen loved 3 things: power, attention, and pretending she was saving the neighborhood from collapse. She'd walk around with a tiny ruler and a camera, taking pictures of mailboxes and measuring grass height. She sent out warning letters like she was running her own police department. You could hear her heels clicking down the street like a horror movie soundtrack. And then, one afternoon, she came for me. I was in my backyard sanding a bench when she knocked on my door. I opened it to find her smiling that politicians smile, the kind that says she's about to ruin your day politely. "Mr. Thompson," she said, holding a paper, "your woodpile violates community aesthetic standards. It's visible from the street." I looked past her shoulder, at my fence. "Karen, it's behind my shed. You can't even see it unless you're trying to." She tilted her head, that fake concerned look. From certain angles, it disrupts neighborhood symmetry. I blinked. Symmetry? It's firewood, not modern art. She didn't laugh. "You'll need to relocate it within 10 days, or the HOA will issue a fine." And just like that, she turned and walked away. I stood there holding that paper, half amused, half annoyed. I didn't move the pile, I just stacked it neater behind the fence and forgot about it. That should have been the end of it. But people like Karen don't stop when you ignore them. They double down. A week later, I noticed something odd. My woodpile looked smaller. At first, I thought maybe I'd just used more than I remembered. But after a few days, it was clear, logs were disappearing. 10 here, 15 there. Now, I'm not a paranoid guy, but wood doesn't walk away on its own. So I asked a few neighbors, "Hey, anyone seen someone messing around my yard?" They shrugged. "Probably kids," they said. But kids don't drag 50-pound oak logs through the night. After the 3rd time, I started keeping count. I've always been meticulous, a habit from my engineering days. I even carved small notches into the ends of a few logs, something only I'd recognize. If one of those disappeared, I'd know. That night, I installed a small motion sensor light near the shed. At around 11:30, it flicked on. I rushed to the back window and caught only a shadow slipping through the gate. The figure was quick, but something shiny caught the moonlight. Heels. High heels. Now, I don't know about your neighborhood, but around here, there's only one woman who wears heels everywhere she goes. And she lived 2 doors down. Still, I didn't confront her right away. I wanted to be sure. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe someone else was desperate for firewood. But the next morning, I got another HOA letter in the mail. A fine, $200, for continued visual clutter due to improper firewood storage. Signed, President Karen Whitmore. The irony hit me like a hammer. She was fining me for the same wood she was stealing. That's when something inside me clicked. See, I'm not the kind of man who yells or fights. I solve problems. Methodically. Like an engineer. And right then, I knew, if I couldn't reason with Karen, I'd have to teach her a different kind of lesson. Not with anger. With precision. So that night, I sat at my desk, sketching. I wasn't planning revenge. Not really. I was planning justice. But before I could do anything, I needed proof, something undeniable. If I accused her without evidence, she'd twist the story, call me a liar, maybe even slap me with another violation. So I decided to catch her red-handed. The next morning, I drove into town and bought 2 small outdoor security cameras, night vision, cloud backup, the works. I mounted one above my shed facing the woodpile, and the other tucked under the gutter pointing toward the backyard gate. You'd have to be Sherlock Holmes to even spot them. And then, I waited. The first night, nothing. Just a stray cat wandering through. The second night, raccoons. But on the third night, my phone buzzed with a motion alert at exactly 12:14 a.m. I opened the app, and there she was. Karen Whitmore. Beige coat, scarf, and those same ridiculous heels. She walked straight into my yard, flashlight in hand, calm as could be. She picked up my logs, my notched logs, and stacked them neatly into a pile by her SUV. The camera MIC even caught her whispering to herself. He won't miss it. It's for the community anyway. I almost laughed out loud. The community? Huh? Yeah, right. She loaded up her car, brushed her hands like she'd just finished a noble act, and drove off into the night. I sat there watching the footage 3 times over. Perfect angle, perfect lighting, her face clearly visible. Now, most people would have gone straight to the police or HOA board, but I knew how Karen worked. She'd deny everything and probably hit me back with a privacy violation for using cameras. So instead, I decided to let her expose herself in public. And as fate would have it, an HOA meeting was scheduled the very next afternoon. Normally, I never went to those. They were just gossip sessions about mailbox colors and fence paint. But this time, I went early and sat right up front. Karen walked in fashionably late, coffee mug in hand, the one that said #1 boss lady. She gave me a smug smile like she'd already won whatever argument we hadn't had yet. All right everyone, she said, tapping her papers. Let's address the ongoing safety issues regarding Mr. Thompson's yard. I clenched my jaw but stayed silent. She went on about how my firewood was a fire hazard, an eyesore, and a danger to the community. Then she pulled out photos of my woodpile. Taken, apparently, just yesterday. I smiled to myself. Oh, Karen. You shouldn't have said yesterday. When she finished, I raised my hand. May I say something? She gave me that fake generous smile. Of course, Tom. But keep it brief. Sure, I said. You mentioned these photos are recent, right? Taken in the last 48 hours. Yes, she replied confidently. I nodded. Interesting. Because half my firewood was stolen in those same 48 hours. The room went silent. A few people looked at each other. Maybe you misplaced it, she said, laughing nervously. I don't misplace 80 pounds of oak, Karen. That got a chuckle from the crowd. I leaned forward. Funny thing, though, I installed security cameras. Would you like to see who took it? Her face drained of color. You can't just, that's invasion of privacy. Cameras on my property, I said calmly. Perfectly legal. Want to see the footage? People murmured. The treasurer whispered something to the vice president. Karen stood frozen, her mouth opening and closing like she was searching for an excuse. Finally, she grabbed her files and hissed, "You'll regret this." Then she stormed out of the meeting. As the door slammed, people started whispering, laughing, clapping even. Someone muttered, "About time someone stood up to her." And me? I just sat there, calm as ever. Because this wasn't over. Not yet. Karen was the type who'd never admit defeat. I knew she'd come back swinging. But that was fine. Because I already had a plan. And it was going to be explosive. Karen thought she'd won. After storming out of that HOA meeting, she probably drove home, poured herself a glass of wine, and told her mirror she'd put the troublemaker in his place. But I wasn't angry. I was patient. Because people like Karen always hang themselves, they just need the right rope. The following morning, I made coffee, sat down at my desk, and replayed the footage again. Frame by frame, there she was, walking into my yard at midnight, heels clicking on the path, stacking my notched firewood into her SUV. At one point she even looked directly into the lens. It was perfect. A rational man would have called the police. But rational doesn't work with Karen. She'd twist the story until I became the villain. No, this had to unfold on its own, in front of witnesses, where even her silver tongue couldn't wriggle out. A few quiet days passed. No letters. No Karen marching down the street with her clipboard. I almost started to believe the meeting humiliation had calmed her down. Then, on Friday morning, a fresh envelope appeared in my mailbox. The HOA seal glared up at me like a smug smirk. Inside, another citation. Unauthorized security installations visible from public areas. Translation. She'd spotted my cameras. I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my coffee. She wasn't backing off. She was doubling down. And that meant it was time for phase 2. That evening, I opened the shed, flipped on the light, and stared at what was left of my firewood. To anyone else, it was just a pile of oak. To me, it was raw material, and a lesson waiting to be built. 30 years as a mechanical engineer changes how you see things. You don't just look at objects. You see potential energy waiting to be directed. I wasn't planning anything dangerous, just educational. Something poetic. I sketched on my workbench, labeling the page the Firewood Project. It sounded like a college thesis, which felt appropriate. The idea was simple. Hollow a few logs, insert tiny charges of black powder fireworks, nothing lethal, just enough to make a dramatic pop and a puff of smoke when lit. A small taste of karma. For 2 days straight, I worked quietly, drilled out cores with my lathe, sealed the ends with bark so they looked real, brushed each piece with ash to dull the color. By Sunday night, I had 3 masterpieces of petty engineering. I stacked them neatly in the middle of the pile where Karen would be sure to grab them first. Now came the waiting. For the next few nights, nothing happened. No movement, no missing logs. I started wondering if she'd finally given up. But the 5th night, just past midnight, my phone buzzed. Motion alert. I opened the feed, and there she was again. Karen Whitmore. Beige coat, scarf, heels, flashlight. Moving through my yard like a thief who believed she owned the place. She picked up the top logs, loaded them into her SUV, and even paused to admire her own efficiency. Then she drove off into the night, completely unaware that she'd just stolen her own downfall. I leaned back in my chair, smiling. The fuse, metaphorically speaking, was set. The next morning, the neighborhood was calm. Sunlight, sprinklers, birdsong, the usual Maple Ridge perfection. I sipped my coffee and opened the latest HOA bulletin. Right at the top, in bold letters, a message from the president about community safety and respect. Karen's name printed underneath. I nearly choked laughing. Around noon, I took a walk. As I passed her driveway, she was outside chatting with Mrs. Beasley, the HOA treasurer and self-appointed moral compass. Both of them sipped tea like royalty. Behind them stood a brand new steel log rack, stacked neatly with, of course, my wood. "Morning, ladies," I said. Karen turned, that syrupy tone in her voice. "Good afternoon, Tom. Lovely day, isn't it?" "Perfect weather," I replied. "A bit windy though. Wouldn't want anything flammable lying around." Her smile twitched. "Don't worry. I know how to handle fire." "I bet you do," I said under my breath as I walked on. That night, I poured a drink and sat by my window. I wasn't expecting much, maybe a little bang, some smoke, a startled scream. But around 8:45 p.m., the air exploded. A deep boom rolled through the neighborhood, followed by another, louder one. Then silence, broken by a single shriek, "Oh my God!" I stepped onto my porch. Smoke was billowing from Karen's chimney, gray and angry against the night sky. Her wreath was half burned. Flames flickered inside the fireplace. Neighbors rushed out, phones in hand. Fire trucks arrived within minutes, sirens slicing through the quiet. And there she was, Karen herself, standing in her yard, robe singed, face smudged black, yelling at a firefighter. It just exploded out of nowhere. I was burning a few logs and then, boom. The firefighter tried not to smile. Looks like you had a combustion buildup. Maybe something inside the wood caught fire too fast. Karen blinked. Are you saying it's my fault? He shrugged. Could be a lot of things. Maybe bad wood. Oh, I didn't buy it, she said, and froze. I raised an eyebrow. Oh, really? Her eyes widened. I mean, I sourced it locally. Sourced it, I repeated. That's one way to put it. The crowd murmured. Mrs. Beasley whispered, Karen, did you? I would never steal, Karen snapped. I smiled. Funny, because I've got footage that says otherwise. The firefighters exchanged glances, trying not to laugh. For the first time, I wasn't angry, I was satisfied. The universe had handled it better than I ever could. When the trucks finally left and the street quieted, I sat on my porch with a cold beer. Karen's house still glowed faintly from the inside, smoke curling lazily into the night sky. I raised my bottle to the stars and whispered, to science. The next morning, Maple Ridge's group chat was pure chaos. Did you hear the explosion? Karen's fireplace blew up. I swear I saw sparks shoot out of her chimney. I scrolled through the messages like any other curious neighbor. Hope she's okay, I typed, perfectly calm. By noon, a county fire inspector's truck was parked in front of her house, alongside 2 HOA board members. Karen stood in the driveway wearing oversized sunglasses and a wide-brimmed hat, as if she were hiding from paparazzi. I strolled over, coffee mug in hand. Morning, Karen, I said cheerfully. Rough night. She glared. This isn't funny, Tom. My fireplace exploded. It could have killed me. Good thing it didn't, I replied evenly. You should probably be careful where you get your firewood. Her jaw tightened. What's that supposed to mean? Oh, I don't know, I said. Sometimes you think you're getting free wood, but it comes with surprises. Mrs. Beasley's eyes darted between us. Are you two implying something? Karen's voice rose. He's accusing me of something ridiculous. He's obsessed with me. I couldn't help laughing. Obsessed? Karen, you've been sneaking into my yard like it's Black Friday. The inspector cleared his throat. All right, folks, let's stay focused. Mrs. Whitmore, we found traces of black powder residue in your fireplace. Likely from fireworks material. Nothing dangerous, but unusual. Karen gasped. Explosives? He planted them. He's trying to kill me. I stayed calm, sipping my coffee. That's a bold accusation, especially since you just admitted the wood came from me. Her mouth opened, then shut. I didn't. You can't prove anything. I smiled. Oh, but I can. Remember those cameras you fined me for? I tapped my phone, showing her the video, her, under moonlight, dragging logs through my gate. The inspector leaned in. Mrs. Beasley whispered, "Oh dear." Karen's voice cracked. This is harassment. You violated my privacy. I shrugged. My cameras, my yard. You trespassed. Want to call the sheriff and clarify whose privacy got violated? She froze, and for the first time, I saw genuine fear in her eyes. The inspector closed his notebook. Mrs. Whitmore, I'd advise you not to make further statements. The footage speaks for itself. Mrs. Beasley sighed. Karen, this looks really bad. Karen looked around at the small crowd gathering, neighbors whispering, phones recording. You're all turning against me, she shouted. After everything I've done for this neighborhood. I couldn't resist. Oh, We appreciate your hard work, Karen, especially cleaning up my firewood for me. Half the crowd laughed. Even the inspector smirked behind his clipboard. Karen's face turned crimson. You'll pay for this, Tom. I'll sue you for intentional harm and emotional distress. I tilted my head. Emotional distress? Was that before or after you stole my logs? Right then, a sheriff's car pulled up. Officer Ramirez stepped out, a calm, no-nonsense guy I'd spoken with before about community safety. What's going on? He asked. Karen rushed over. Officer, arrest him. He booby-trapped Firewood to hurt me. Ramirez raised a hand. Slow down. One at a time. I handed him my phone. Here's my footage, officer. That's her stealing the logs. I never filed a report because I was hoping she'd do the right thing. He watched for a few seconds, then looked at her. This is you, right? Same clothes, same car, same license plate. Karen stammered. That's not. You can't tell, it's dark. It's clear enough, Ramirez said. Trespassing and theft. I'm not pressing charges yet, but this is an official warning. Any further incident, and it becomes criminal. She stared at me, trembling. You planned this. I smiled. I set up cameras. You set yourself up. The neighbors chuckled. Karen spun, shouting, You're all monsters. I run this neighborhood. Mrs. Beasley muttered to the vice president, Not anymore. Karen heard it. Her face crumpled. She stormed to her SUV, slammed the door, and screeched down the street. Ramirez turned to me. You handled that better than most would have. Just, maybe avoid any more science experiments. No promises, I said, laughing. That night, I sat by my fire pit, the same place this whole mess started, and dropped a real log onto the flames. The crackles sounded different now. Peaceful. Final. For the first time in months, the neighborhood was quiet. No letters. No clipboard patrols. No Karen. For a while, Maple Ridge felt like it had finally exhaled. No HOA letters, no surprise fines taped to doors, no clicking heels echoing down the sidewalks. The grass still grew, the mail still came, and for the first time in months the only thing anyone heard at night was the hum of sprinklers and crickets. I should have been happy, but I've lived long enough to know that quiet is never just quiet. It's the sound trouble makes when it's charging up. Karen Whitmore might have been humiliated at that HOA meeting, but humiliation isn't the same as defeat. She was the kind of person who didn't believe she could lose. If the world said otherwise, she'd rewrite the rules until she was right again. So even while the neighborhood relaxed, I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. 3 mornings after the hearing, I woke to a perfect sunrise spilling through my kitchen window. Coffee steaming, bacon crisping. I almost felt normal again. I stepped outside with my mug and looked down Maple Ridge Drive. Mrs. Beasley was trimming her roses, the Millers were loading their twins into the SUV for school, and old Mr. Jenkins waved from his porch. It felt human. Then I noticed the envelope, taped to my front door, printed on cream-colored paper with the HOA logo in gold foil. Of course. I peeled it off, half amused already. Inside was a letter so polished it probably wore perfume. Subject: Notice of Community Hearing. From Acting President Karen Whitmore. To Resident Thomas Thompson. Mr. Thompson, you are hereby requested to attend a special HOA session regarding potential violations of neighborhood safety protocols and the installation of unauthorized surveillance equipment. I laughed so loud my neighbor's cat jumped the fence. She'd just been voted out, yet here she was, printing letters like a government department that refused to die. I muttered, You really can't quit, can you, Karen? Later that day, I drove past her house out of curiosity. Her mailbox was stuffed with letters, her porch still bore the scorch marks from the fireplace explosion, yet the curtains were open and her SUV gleamed in the driveway like she'd spent the morning washing off shame with car wax. And there she was, through the glass, typing furiously at her computer, surrounded by neat stacks of papers and a brand new printer. She'd gone back to work. Maybe not as president, but definitely as self-appointed avenger. I shook my head and kept driving, but I started keeping notes again. Dates, times, small things. Engineers log data. It's how we stay sane. By the end of the week, small ripples spread through the community. Someone mentioned I'd tampered with fireworks. Another neighbor asked if it was true I had hidden cameras pointed at people's windows. None of them said where they'd heard it, but we all knew. Karen had started a whisper campaign. And in a place like Maple Ridge, gossip travels faster than Wi-Fi. I didn't react publicly. Instead, I fixed things the way I always do, with precision. I compiled a binder labeled The Firewood Trap, Phase 2. Inside, copies of the inspector's report, screenshots of the footage, printed HOA bylaws, and a list of every fine Karen had ever issued in the past year. Many of them technically illegal because they'd never gone through a board vote. Friday evening, just as I was cleaning tools in the shed, someone knocked at the side gate. It was Wilson, the new HOA president, a tall, quiet retired attorney with kind eyes and a permanent look of mild disappointment in bureaucracy. "Tom," he said, "mind if I come in?" "Sure. You want a beer?" "Better not. I'm here on official business." That sentence made me laugh out loud. "Already? She's filing again." He smiled thinly. "Let's just say our former president has been sending a lot of emails. Accusations, documents, even a timeline she claims proves you set her up." "Let me guess," I said. "Does it involve me building a rocket in my shed?" He chuckled. "Close. She's accusing you of manufacturing explosives without a license." I blinked. "She really said that?" "Amham. She also CC'd the county code office, local police, and the HOA mailing list." I whistled. "Well, that's efficient." He lowered his voice. "Between you and me, the board's tired of her. But we still have to review it formally. There'll be another meeting next week. I figured you'd want a heads up." "Thanks," I said. "I'll bring popcorn." After he left, I stood in my workshop surrounded by the smell of oil and sawdust. On the wall hung the blueprints I'd drawn for the original Firewood project, the harmless pop logs that had given Karen her little fireworks show. I ran a finger along the pencil lines, thinking how easily something so small could unravel months of bullying. Revenge, I realized, is a lot like engineering. It's not about power, it's about precision, timing, and knowing where to apply pressure so the structure collapses on its own. Still, part of me felt uneasy. I didn't want to become what she was, someone who lived for control. But when a person keeps poking, eventually you have to remind them you bite. So I opened a new page in my notebook and wrote 3 words. Phase 3, Documentation Day. If Karen wanted evidence, I'd drown her in it. Over the next few days, subtle things changed. People started stopping by, not to gossip, but to ask. Mr. Jenkins wanted to know if the stories were true. The Millers brought me coffee and said, "We don't believe a word she's saying." Even Mrs. Beasley dropped off banana bread as an apology for letting things go too far. I didn't have to defend myself. Karen's lies were starting to collapse under their own weight. One afternoon I caught sight of her standing at her window watching me load groceries into my car. She looked furious, not the loud kind, but the quiet, calculating kind. The kind that plans. I gave her a friendly wave. She shut the blinds so fast I heard them snap. 2 nights before the scheduled hearing, an email arrived from an unfamiliar address. k.whitmore.representatives@gmail.com. The subject line read, "Let's end this like adults." The message was short. "Tom, we've both been embarrassed enough. Meet me tomorrow evening at the clubhouse to settle this privately before the board drags us through another spectacle. Karen." I stared at the screen, half expecting it to self-destruct. A private meeting? With her? Every instinct screamed trap. Still, curiosity is a powerful thing, and so is the satisfaction of finishing what someone else starts. I replied, "Sure. 7 p.m. works." Then I texted Wilson, "Just FYI, meeting Karen tomorrow evening. Might be nothing, might be fireworks." He texted back one word, "Document." The next evening, I arrived early. The clubhouse lights were on, but the parking lot was empty except for Karen's silver SUV. Inside, The air smelled like lemon polish and cheap coffee. Karen sat at the conference table, papers spread out like a courtroom exhibit. "Tom," she said, smiling too wide. "Thank you for coming. I think we can resolve this." "Sounds promising," I said, taking a seat across from her. She slid a folder toward me. "Sign this and we both walk away clean." I opened it. It was a settlement agreement. Handwritten, UN notarized, full of vague legal language. In short, I confess to setting up dangerous devices, she agrees not to pursue charges, and we both promise silence. I looked up. "Karen, this isn't a peace treaty. It's a trap." Her voice sharpened. "Call it what you want. If you don't sign, I'll take this to the county prosecutor. I've already sent them copies of your sketches." My stomach dropped. "My sketches?" She smirked. "You think I didn't keep evidence? I took photos through your window last week. Pretty incriminating stuff." I froze. That was a new level of crazy, even for her. "You trespassed again," I said. She shrugged. "Public safety." While she ranted, my eyes flicked to the corner of the room where a small red LED glowed faintly. A security camera, the clubhouse's own system, always recording. I leaned back and let her talk, every word digging her hole deeper. She raved about how she'd exposed the fraud, how the HOA owed her gratitude, how I should thank her for restraint. Finally, she stood, leaned forward, and hissed, "You're going to regret ever moving here, Tom." I smiled slowly. Maybe, but at least the camera caught that part. She froze. "What camera?" I nodded toward the corner. The red light blinked again. Her face drained of color. "You." I stood. "Relax. I didn't set it up. The HOA did. Standard security. But I'm sure Wilson will appreciate the footage." For once, she was speechless. I left her standing there, mouth open, surrounded by her fake paperwork. That night, as I sat on my porch, I realized the real trap had already been sprung. Not the one I built with tools, but the one she built with ego. She'd recorded herself threatening me inside an HOA facility under active surveillance. I looked up at the stars and said, Phase 3 complete. The next hearing would decide everything. And this time, she wouldn't walk out with a smile. The morning of the hearing felt different. Even the air seemed tense, heavy with humidity and rumor. You could practically smell anticipation drifting down Maple Ridge Drive. I got up early, brewed an extra strong cup of coffee, and sat at my kitchen table reviewing my binder one last time. Every photo, every printed email, every little piece of Karen's nonsense was sorted by tab. It looked more like a lawyer's case file than a neighbor's complaint. At 8:45 a.m., a message pinged on my phone. It was Wilson. Full board attendance. Big crowd. Bring your calmest smile. I texted back a thumbs up, shut the binder, and whispered, let's finish this. By 9, the clubhouse parking lot was already full. Half the neighborhood had shown up, pretending to care about community business when really everyone wanted to see the showdown. Inside, the air conditioner struggled against the crush of bodies and cheap perfume. Wilson stood near the front with Mrs. Beasley and the other board members. At the long table, name placards waited: President, Secretary, Treasurer, Resident Tom Thompson, former President Karen Whitmore. Karen was already there, of course. Hair perfectly curled, pearls around her neck, posture like she'd been carved from marble. If she was nervous, she hid it behind a politician's smile. Morning, Tom, she said as I walked in. Big day for accountability. Couldn't agree more, I answered, setting my binder down. Wilson rapped the table with a pen. Let's come to order. Today's hearing concerns allegations brought by Mrs. Whitmore against Mr. Thompson. Mrs. Whitmore, you requested this meeting, so you may begin. Karen stood, shuffling papers dramatically. Thank you, Mr. President. As you all know, recent events have endangered our peaceful community. Mr. Thompson deliberately created explosive devices disguised as firewood, placed them on his property, and through negligence allowed one to cause a dangerous explosion at my home. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. She held up a photo, the scorched fireplace. Evidence of destruction, she declared. I barely survived. I wanted to clap. The performance was worthy of an award. Furthermore, she continued, Mr. Thompson maintains illegal surveillance equipment directed at neighboring homes, violating privacy and HOA standards. Wilson nodded politely. Thank you, Mrs. Whitmore. Mr. Thompson, your response? I stood slowly, letting the room quiet down. Sure. But first, can I borrow the screen for a second? Wilson gestured. Go ahead. I connected my phone to the TV, pulled up a video file, and pressed play. There, in crisp night vision clarity, was Karen herself, entering my yard at midnight, flashlight in hand, stacking my notched firewood into her SUV. The audio caught her muttering, "He won't miss it. It's for the community anyway." Gasps erupted. Mrs. Beasley's hand flew to her mouth. I paused the video. That's Exhibit A, I said. Timestamped, geotagged, reviewed by Officer Ramirez. Cameras located entirely on my property. Karen's voice shot across the room. Fake. He doctored that. I shrugged. Then maybe the county fire inspector, who confirmed residue of consumer fireworks inside your fireplace, is in on the conspiracy too. Wilson held up a document. For the record, this report matches what Mr. Thompson just described. I clicked to the next video, the clubhouse security recording from the night before. On screen, Karen sat across from me, waving a pen, voice sharp and angry. The audio was clear enough for every word. If you don't sign, I'll take this to the prosecutor. I've already taken photos through your window. When it ended, the silence was deafening. Wilson exhaled. Mrs. Whitmore, do you dispute this recording? She opened her mouth, then closed it again. That's out of context, she stammered. He provoked me. By sitting there, someone whispered from the back. The laughter started as a chuckle and spread through the room until even Wilson cracked a smile. I laid one last sheet on the table, a copy of her letter, the summons she'd taped to my door, still signed President Karen Whitmore. Even after being removed from office, I said, she continued using HOA letterhead and issuing citations. That's forgery, by the way. Mrs. Beasley nodded reluctantly. He's right. The stationery was locked in the office. She must have. Karen cut her off. This is a witch hunt. Wilson raised a hand. Please, calm down. But she didn't. Her voice grew louder, shriller. You're all blind. I built this neighborhood. Without me, this place will rot. People started murmuring again, shifting uncomfortably. Karen, Wilson said gently, no one doubts your contributions, but your methods have caused harm. The board has seen enough. He turned to the others. All in favor of dismissing these allegations against Mr. Thompson. Hands went up, every single one. Motion carried, Wilson said. Case closed. Karen stood frozen, papers trembling in her hands. You can't just dismiss me. I have rights. Of course, Wilson said. You're free to appeal, to the county, not to us. The crowd began to rise, chairs scraping. The meeting was over. But she wasn't finished. You think you've won, she shouted. You'll see what happens when the county hears about this. I'll ruin every one of you. I gathered my binder, keeping my voice even. Karen, maybe take a break. The community could use one too. She glared at me, face flushed crimson. You smug little man. You think you're clever, but you're not. You're a bully hiding behind paperwork. I smiled sadly. Maybe, but at least my paperwork's legal. Laughter rippled again, and that was the last straw. She stormed out, slamming the door so hard the blinds rattled. The room relaxed all at once, like tension leaving a wound. People began talking, some laughing, some shaking their heads. Mrs. Beasley approached me. Tom, I'm sorry we let it get this far. I should have stepped in months ago. I shrugged. You can't reason with a hurricane, Beasley. You just wait it out. Wilson joined us. You handled yourself well. But be careful. She might try something outside HOA channels. Legal threats. Maybe. I nodded. Let her. Truth's got deeper roots than gossip. That evening, the neighborhood felt lighter again. I sat on my porch watching the sunset paint the roofs gold. Kids rode bikes, sprinklers clicked on, and for once, no one was yelling about fence heights. For the first time in a long while, Maple Ridge actually sounded like home. But peace, like fire, has embers that hide under ash. And when I went to bed that night, I couldn't shake a small feeling that this wasn't over. Because Karen wasn't the type to walk away. She was the type to reload. By sunrise, the gossip machine was already grinding. Someone had uploaded a clip from the hearing, just 10 seconds of me showing the video of Karen sneaking into my yard. Within hours, the whole block had seen it. The clip title? HOA Karen Busted Stealing Firewood. Her perfect image, gone overnight. But humiliation doesn't break people like her. It fuels them. That afternoon, a courier truck stopped at my house. The driver handed me a thick envelope stamped Whitmore and Associates, legal notice. I almost laughed. Karen had gone full courtroom drama. Inside was a 3-page cease and desist demanding I delete defamatory content, pay damages for mental anguish, and issue a public apology within 48 hours. It was signed by Karen Whitmore, acting counsel. No lawyer. Just her. I poured coffee, pinned the letter to my fridge with a magnet that said good luck with that, and went back to sanding a chair. By evening, Maple Ridge's Facebook page was on fire. Anonymous posts claimed I was a danger to the community, that I'd booby-trapped property, that I threatened a woman's life. Every post used the same phrasing, the same grammar quirks Karen used in her HOA emails. She'd built a fake army of aliases. I counted 5 accounts before dinner. By midnight, 12. The comments section turned into a circus. Half the neighbors defended me. The other half just wanted entertainment. I stayed silent. Let her talk herself hoarse. 2 nights later, blue lights splashed across my living room wall. A knock. I opened the door to Officer Ramirez, the same cop who'd handled the fireplace fiasco. He looked apologetic. Tom, sorry to bother you again. We got another complaint from Mrs. Whitmore, claims you're manufacturing explosives. I sighed. Of course she did. Want to see my workshop? He stepped inside. I showed him tools, sawdust, ordinary household materials. No fireworks, no powder, nothing illegal. He nodded. As I figured. I'll file it as unfounded. Before leaving, he said quietly, between you and me, she's called 3 times this week. Once about suspicious smoke, once about threatening lights. You might want to install a fence camera facing her house, for your protection. I smiled. Already done. The next morning, a local neighborhood blog posted a dramatic headline. HOA war erupts after fireplace explosion. The article quoted an anonymous source close to the former president accusing me of sabotage. Everyone knew who the source was. Within an hour, the comments section turned against her. Neighbors posted screenshots of her midnight visits, clips from the hearing, memes comparing her to a Bond villain. By lunchtime, the blog issued a correction. Claims unsubstantiated. Source later identified as involved party. That must have hurt. Around 11 that night, my phone rang, unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Her voice came through the speaker, tight and trembling with rage. You think this is over? You humiliated me in front of everyone. I'm not done with you, Tom. I'll make sure you regret ever moving here. I saved the recording, labeled it Exhibit C. Saturday morning, flyers appeared on mailboxes. Black and white sheets with bold letters. Neighbor with explosives, stay safe. They listed my address and a grainy photo of me loading lumber into my truck. Kids laughed, adults sighed, and the HOA printer jammed from overuse. Wilson dropped one on my porch and shook his head. She passed them out herself at dawn. Cameras caught her. She's spiraling, I said. He looked worried. If this keeps up, the board might have to file a restraining order. Be prepared. Already documenting, I replied. That evening I was taking trash to the curb when she appeared. Karen marched down the sidewalk clutching a stack of folders like they were evidence in a trial. You think you can destroy my reputation? She hissed. I've spoken to my cousin in county media. They'll air your story next week. Go ahead, I said. Just make sure they spell my name right. Her eyes blazed. You're mocking me. I'm tired, Karen. Go home. She stepped closer. You're dangerous, Tom. You set traps. And you keep walking into them. I interrupted softly. For a second, I thought she might swing the folders at me. Instead, she dropped them on the pavement. Papers scattered, half of them blank, the rest filled with gibberish. Made-up invoices, official HOA letters printed on her own letterhead. She realized what she'd done, gathered them frantically, and stormed off muttering, "You'll see, you'll all see." The next day, 3 families came by to thank me for standing up to her. One brought pie, another offered to help rebuild my fence. The neighborhood that once lived in fear of her clipboards now treated me like the local sheriff. But not everyone cheered. 2 houses kept their blinds closed tight, the ones that used to benefit from her favoritism. I caught one of them filming me on his phone. Karen wasn't alone. She still had sympathizers. So I stayed polite, calm, visible. When people see composure against chaos, they remember who's the problem. Monday morning, I woke to find a reporter outside my house. Mr. Thompson, Channel 9 News. Mind answering a few questions about the HOA explosion incident? I almost laughed. You mean the one 6 weeks ago? She nodded. We received documents from Mrs. Whitmore suggesting you engineered the blast intentionally. I crossed my arms. Did she also mention the police cleared me? The reporter hesitated. She left that part out. Figures. Would you like the official reports? I handed her a flash drive with every document, timestamp, and recording. Everything's in there. Enjoy the truth. By evening, the story aired. Balanced, factual. The headline read, HOA scandal. President caught falsifying claims. Karen's photo filled the screen. Her voice clip, shouting during the hearing, played for everyone in the county to hear. She'd handed them her own rope. After that broadcast, Karen vanished for 3 days. No lights in her windows. Mail piling up. The SUV untouched. Then, on the 4th night, I saw her. Standing in her yard under the porch light, staring at my house. No clipboard, no heels, just a bathrobe and bare feet. For a long minute she didn't move. Then she whispered something I couldn't hear and went inside. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Wednesday afternoon, Officer Ramirez knocked again. Tom, quick question, he said. Did you leave any packages on Mrs. Whitmore's porch recently? No. Why? She reported a suspicious box addressed to her. Turned out to be empty, just an old showbox with the word karma written on it. I frowned. Not mine. He sighed. Figured. Maybe one of your enthusiastic supporters thought they'd help. Great, I muttered. Now she'll think I'm stalking her. She already does, he said dryly. That night I lay awake listening to the rain tap the roof. Somewhere out there Karen was probably typing another complaint, another fantasy, but part of me wondered what would happen when she finally realized the fight was lost. Would she apologize? Move away? Or light another metaphorical match? The answer came sooner than expected. At 2 a.m., a flash lit my window, camera flash, not lightning. I pulled on a jacket and stepped onto the porch. Karen stood halfway up my driveway, phone raised. Karen, I said quietly, you're trespassing again. I'm collecting evidence, she snapped. You're threatening me through your lights. My porch light. They blink in code. I blinked. You think I'm sending you Morse code with LEDs? She pointed the phone like a weapon. Stay back or I'll call the police. Go ahead, I said. You'll get Ramirez again. He loves late-night drama. Her face twisted, half rage, half confusion. Then she stumbled backward, dropped her phone, grabbed it, and ran into the rain. I exhaled slowly, the adrenaline cooling in my veins. That was it, the breaking point. She wasn't plotting anymore. She was unraveling. The next morning, Wilson called. She filed another complaint. Claims you threatened her with optical warfare. The board's forwarding everything to the county. After that, it's out of our hands. Good, I said. Maybe they can get her the help she needs. He hesitated. Tom, be careful. People on the edge do unpredictable things. I know, I said. That's why I keep my cameras running. As I hung up, a new alert pinged on my phone, motion detected at the side gate. When I checked the feed, there she was again. Not stealing this time. Just standing in the rain, staring at the lens, whispering something I couldn't hear. Then she turned and walked away into the dark. And I knew. The real explosion hadn't happened yet. It was still building, quiet, invisible. Rain hung over Maple Ridge like a held breath. For 2 nights after that last encounter in the driveway, I barely slept. Every creak of the house made me check the cameras again. Nothing but drizzle, wind, and the ghost of tension that wouldn't leave. Peace had returned, technically, but peace felt different now. Like standing in a quiet room that still smells of smoke. It was Sunday morning when it finally broke. A slow knock at the door. Not urgent, but official. When I opened it, 2 uniformed deputies stood on the porch, hats dripping rain. Mr. Thompson, the taller one asked. That's me. Mat 214 Maple, Karen Whitmore, has been taken into custody for trespassing, harassment, and filing false reports. We just need to confirm you're willing to sign the statement on record. For a moment I just stood there. After months of noise, letters, accusations, it ended with a clipboard and a wet signature. I signed, thanked them, and watched the patrol car crawl away through puddles. No satisfaction. No celebration. Just quiet. By afternoon, the neighborhood was buzzing again. The way it does when people are relieved but unsure whether to feel sorry. Kids rode bikes past her empty driveway. Mrs. Beasley whispered to Mr. Jenkins. They said she needs evaluation, stress, maybe. Wilson stopped by. She'll get community service and counseling. County's calling it an obsessive harassment case. He looked tired. It's over, Tom. You can breathe now. Yeah, I said, staring at the wet pavement. Guess so. But breathing didn't feel easy. Every victory has a price tag you don't notice until the noise fades. That week I dismantled the extra cameras, deleted the footage, and burned the last of the notched firewood in the fire pit. Each pop of the flame felt like closing a chapter. The smoke smelled sharp, like relief mixed with guilt. Neighbors stopped to thank me again. How I'd stood up for everyone. I smiled, nodded, played the hero they wanted. Inside, it didn't feel heroic. It felt heavy. Revenge solves a problem, sure. But it builds another one inside you. A month later, a moving truck appeared in front of 214 Maple. 2 men loaded boxes while Karen, smaller, paler, her hair tied back, stood by the mailbox signing papers. No pearls, no clipboard. Just silence. I stepped out with a mug of coffee. For a long moment we looked at each other across the lawn. No anger left, just exhaustion. She raised a hand, half wave, half surrender. I returned it. No words. None were left that mattered. When the truck drove off, Maple Ridge didn't cheer. It just sighed. Weeks passed. The HOA meetings became shorter. Rules loosened. Lawns grew wild in spots and nobody cared. People laughed again. And me? I started walking every evening, same route down the street where all this began. I noticed small things I used to ignore. The sound of sprinklers, the smell of pine after rain, the way sunset light hits the windows. Funny, when you spend so long fighting for peace, you forget what it sounds like. If this were a movie, this would be the part where the narrator says something wise while the camera pulls back. Something like, revenge is a fire. It keeps you warm, but it eats the oxygen too. And maybe that's true. I didn't lose anything tangible in this war. No property, no job. But I lost time. I lost calm. And I almost lost the version of myself that could let things go. Would I do it again? Maybe. But slower. Kinda. That winter, I built a new woodpile. Neat, small, hidden behind the shed. When I split the first log, the rhythm felt different. Less like anger, more like rebuilding. I stacked the pieces carefully, stepped back, and whispered, "Let's keep it boring this time." The wind rustled the trees, carrying the faint smell of smoke from a distant chimney. Not hers anymore. Just someone staying warm. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough. She stole my firewood, I gave her fireworks, and somewhere between the smoke and silence, we both learned something. Rules don't make a neighborhood. People do. And sometimes the hardest thing about winning a fight is remembering when to stop swinging. Fade out on the quiet street. Sprinklers hiss. Door closes. End.